Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives, and my next guest is best known for her band Betty, which performs the L Word theme song. But you were also an executive producer on the show. You wrote many episodes, some of the best episodes, might I add. I want to talk about your specific contributions. You've been in your band Betty since 1986, which really is boggling my mind. I want to go deep about that.
Boggles my mind too.
Yeah. And so, Elizabeth Ziff, we have a lot to talk about. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really happy to be here, happy to be meeting you, and to be on this fantastic podcast.
You also have a podcast, Betty: Girl Band, which I've been binging and is so interesting, so New York centric. I love it. Now, the band Betty is made up of, it's a trio. It is yourself, it is your sister, Amy Ziff.
Yes.
And your third bandmate is Allison Palmer.
My best friend.
Your best friend. So, okay, we know how you met your sister. How did you meet Allison Palmer?
We put an ad on the radio very early on. I was still living at my parents' house with my sister outside of DC. And we put an ad on the radio for a bass player. And Allison was the second person that came. This was in our first band, which was in 1981, called Quiver. And it was an all-girl band. And we already had the drummer who I went to high school with. And Allison came, and Allison is probably the most beautiful person you'll ever see in your life, inside and out. And she just got out of the car. She's so classy and wonderful. And we just hit it off right away. It was like I had known her my whole life. And we stayed up all night laughing our ass off about what we should name the band. And then about a week later, she helped us move. We moved into DC, a place we could practice. It was pretty much, in the sketchy part of town, but that's what we could afford. And we all just moved to DC together, and we just started playing music. And, we've been in 3 bands together. Betty started in 86. We were in a band called Quiver first, and that imploded after about a year. And we stayed together because there's just this crazy bond that the 3 of us have. I don't know how healthy it is, but it's definitely a bond.
Have you ever been to therapy together, the 3 of you?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
We probably should be still in therapy, but it was hard to get us all in there. I mean, we have fights like you cannot believe the fights. They're better now than they used to be. But at one point, I almost threw my sister out of a hotel room, and Allison stopped me. I mean, I'm not proud of these.
So what has been the biggest sticking point? Tell me a story of like something that you just could not get aligned on.
A lot of times we're not aligned, but there's a Venn diagram that we all fit into. And that's what's kept us going for this thing, that and our politics. And the fact that we're all such feminists and we're, queer positive and blah, 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 blah. We were arts envoys for the U.S. State Department. We go all over the world, and we do programs, workshops, and concerts for women and girls, for LGBTQ. These are all programs that Hillary Clinton actually started when she was the Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Trump put a kibosh on it, but we still do it, and we fund it ourselves because we started our own nonprofit. But really the sticking point, more than anything else, because we're such good friends, and where we're not doing Betty stuff, we're laughing and having fun in Betty too, especially when we're performing. But when we're creating together, or when somebody brings a song and you start changing it, it's really difficult because your ego's involved, and we have, we push each other's buttons. She's my sister, and because we've known each other for so long, you get stuck in stuff. And so that's what we have fights about. We're much better than we used to be. Much, much better. And, we've done a lot of work around it, but we still have those moments. And I have to tell you, it really affects me. When I have a shitty rehearsal and we have fights, they're my family. They're my friends. They're my family. And it's a band. So it's even deeper than that. It's the closest you can get to somebody without having sex, really.
Well, because you're creating together.
And that is sort of like having sex. Honestly, it is. It's when it's amazing, it's amazing. And when it's really, really difficult, it's really difficult. But then I look back at times when we're working on a song, especially something a cappella that we're trying to do, because that's really difficult. It's so hard to work it out. We have so many fights. It's despairing and horrible. But then all of a sudden it'll click, and all 3 of us will know when it clicks. And also, my sister and I are Jewish, so we fight like insane fights, and then 2 seconds later, we're fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how did you come up with the name Betty?
Well, that happened. We were in another band, and this is when we lived in DC. And the woman who owned the bar, the 930 Club, which is very famous now, Dodie Bowers, she owned it, and she was so cool. She was really cool. She brought all this new music to DC. I mean, it was a scene. And she knew that Allison worked there as a bartender, and she knew that we sang a cappella, and we were also just always there. We were part of the scene. And so she said, well, I know that you sing a cappella. It's February 14th, and it's Valentine's Day. I want to do a show, and I want you guys to sing a cappella. So we said, okay. So we sang a couple songs a cappella, and the response was so immediate and so strong. It just blew us all away because we felt it too. Not the a cappella, but the three of us.
So how did you come up with the name Betty?
Well, we were on our way to the gig, and we were in the car, and we said, well, we have to have a name for tonight. And so we just said Betty. It just happened.
It literally, like, apropos of nothing?
Apropos of pretty much nothing. I mean, all of us will lie and tell you different stories, but this is the truth. We just had to have a name. We never knew it would be with us for 38 years. You know, we just thought, oh, well, we're going to do this one-off. We'll call ourselves
Did
Betty.
you ever think of changing it?
No.
Wow. Is it funny to you that there's now Betty who?
Well, there's a million Bettys.
Who are the other Bettys?
Oh, gosh, there's been Churcher Betty. There's been Daughter Betty. There's been, if you look it up, there's a bazillion Bettys.
Wow. Okay.
You know, we've been doing this so long that we have it trademarked as Betty in all capitals.
Yeah.
So, but you know, nothing is original. If you're around long enough in the arts, you realize that nothing is totally
Wait,
original.
Okay, on this exact note, can we talk about, have you heard the new Ariana Grande song?
I did, yeah.
So, I mean, all of these, a lot of the new music that's coming out over the past couple of years, it's all pulling from that Shep Pettibone production sound, which was made most famous in Vogue. But if you listen to that song, and then you listen to Break My Soul by Beyonce, and then if you listen to Babylon by Lady Gaga, these are all, and then of course like a remix or put them all together with Vogue. Like, why can't somebody find a new beat?
They will.
Or a new lyric or a new melody? Like, why is everything either heavily interpolated or sampled? Why is it so difficult?
I don't think it's that difficult. I think you have to look further if you want to find newer sounds. But, you know, I love Ariana Grande. I mean, I really do. I love pop music, and I think some of it is really great. It's like every era, you get a sound that people respond to. Even if you go back to the 40s, 50s, 30s, you know, there was a sound, people responded to it. It was grassroots. And then all of a sudden, people that knew that they could make money from it grabbed it and then found other people that sounded like that too and brought it in. And it's always been that way. I mean, except for if you go to, you know, roots music, country music, and things like that, like original, that kind of stuff.
Have you seen, I think it's on HBO Max, it's a documentary on Little Richard.
I haven't seen it, no.
Oh, you have to watch it.
Okay.
It's basically about how Little Richard really, like, so much of the Beatles influence. And
but they say it. The Beatles said that.
Yeah.
You know, and also the Rolling Stones, they give credit.
But Little Richard never made it on that level.
It's because he was so gay.
Yeah.
You know, and they just couldn't handle it. And
that documentary is for any like real student of music and are into what we're talking about. I highly recommend that.
I mean, he was definitely an original. It really is hard to get traction as an original. You usually have to wait until you're dead, or you have to wait until you're quote unquote discovered, or it's just luck. You know, it really is. It's just luck. It's being right place, right time. I mean, we've been together forever, and we have had this great career, but we've never been ginormous. You know, we've never been like mainstream. Our new album is much more mainstream in a really cool way because it goes back to our roots, which is more electronica and things like that. We worked with Jason Carmer, and I really love our new record. It's really great, and we've done a lot of stuff that's popular. But I think you just have to be right place, right time. But sometimes if your longevity isn't dependent on that, you know, because some people will be right place, right time, but then where are they 10 years later or even 5 years later?
Right.
Every career is different, especially when it comes to the arts.
It's interesting to me how in modern times you realize that, or you notice there aren't that many one-hit wonders anymore. Like they're like, like Lady Gaga's been around for over 15 years at this point, which is impressive. Like it feels like she just started yesterday. And even somebody like Ariana Grande, can you believe this woman has had like 5 albums? And it feels like they feel like people who, maybe not Gaga, but somebody like Ariana or some of these other artists, you feel like, oh, they would have been, had they been out in the 80s or the 90s, you would have never heard from them again. But I think maybe because they're actual songwriters, they have the ability, they're not reliant on a songwriter to give them the hit song.
Right. But a lot of them do have songwriters too. And if the songwriters, there's about 10 of them, 10.
Yeah.
You get those songwriters and they work with Beyonce or they work with, whoever. And usually the bigger the artist, the more credit they're going to get on the album for writing.
I heard Beyonce, like she will bring everybody out to the Hamptons and she'll put all the producers in different rooms and she'll just walk around and be like, I like that verse. I like that. They Frankenstein songs. I like that bridge. I like that verse. I like that chorus. It's like a camp that she runs. So that's why if you look at Wikipedia you're right. There are like 20. If you look at the Grammy nominations, it's like 20. Like Lennon and McCartney didn't do this. Like, is this song, it leads me to the question of, is this actual songwriting?
I think, who am I to decide what songwriting is, honestly? I think everybody and anyone could write a song. I think production is very important now. I think hits are made on the radio, yes, but they're predetermined hits because there's playlists. And there's even playlists on college radio now, which there weren't before. And so there's maybe, honestly, if you're an independent artist, there's probably 5 major radio stations in America that you can be played on. And that's about it.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think a lot of people get their music from bigger sources. I think they get it when they do deep dives. But also the thing that's changed in the music industry is that people don't pay for music. So you end up making this album and it costs you $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 to make as an independent artist. And, we're lucky because people buy our music because they're fans and they know that, we paid for it. But a lot of people don't make it back. They don't make the money back and they spend a fortune. And then people just, listen to their songs for free. But that's the way it is now. And things change all the time. And there's to monetize money, to monetize your music in America is interesting. I mean, you have to get placed on television shows, which we have done many times, and you have to be lucky. You have to have great fans. You have to have a big machine behind you, which we don't have and never have.
But you for a long time you were independent, but you've been signed for a while.
No, we're still independent. We've always been independent.
You're not on a record label?
No.
Oh, I thought you were now.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
No, we're OG independent artists, and we have been for a long time. Not always by choice, frankly, because it's a lot of fucking work.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like, what? And it's a machine that gets you out there, and if you don't have the machine, but we have a lot of fans, and we play all over the world. Yes, the L Word was really great and helpful, got us into South America and things like that. But I mean, if we had like one person to bring it all together, like we don't even have management. We don't have management. We do have booking, and we have people that help us. We have office and we have a lot of people like that, but we don't have like one major manager. I mean, not to denigrate the people that work with us because they've done a lot of work. And we love you.
So the year is 1986. You form the band. On the radio at that time, 1986, Papa Don't Preach, Live to Tell. Like, what was the music? Who were you a super fan of?
Well, I can barely remember yesterday. So asking me to go back to 1986 is very hard.
When you were in high school?
Well, I tell you, I was a super fan. I worked at a record store for a couple of years, a really good record store, the best in D.C.
What's it called?
It was called Record and Tape Limited. It changed its name to Olson's later, but it was great. Everybody was an expert in their field. And so if you went in there and you were a jazz fan, you went to Gypsy and you asked him what the best new jazz record was, and he would tell you, and it would be the best new jazz record. I was a pop person. So I would pick hits. Like when Michael Jackson's Thriller came out, I said, this is going to be Monster. This is going to be Monster. And I loved it. Just because something was popular didn't make me not like it. Because I also liked Minor Threat. You know, I liked hardcore music. I loved Chaka Khan. I had a very, very diverse understanding of music. I love classical music. I love country. I love Dolly Parton. So it was never like, oh, I have to listen to this. But I went to a lot of new wave shows. I had new wave hair, you know, but I also went to see Ella Fitzgerald at the Kennedy Center. So I think our band was formed by, it wasn't just music that informed our stuff. It was politics. I came out. I was never in the closet. I mean, I fucked a lot of guys. But then once I started sleeping with girls and I had my first girlfriend, that was it. You know, that was it. I was never in the closet. And my sister came out later. She wasn't in the closet. She was always bisexual. And then she had a girlfriend. And Allison's been with the same guy for 37 years, who's a great friend of ours and also plays guitar with us. I don't even know what the fuck I was talking about.
I was asking you like what music you like, but you got it.
I've liked it all,
Yeah.
you know, and I've always liked it all.
So what year did the three of you move to New York City?
We came here because we got this, we did a show at the Bottom Line, which was an old nightclub right where NYU is now. And it was a great nightclub. And we played there and we opened for this guy named Jonathan Richmond. And HBO was, at the time when HBO started, you know, it was mostly porn and stuff like that, late night
Taxi
stuff.
Cab Confessions, the greatest.
Yeah, exactly. And so the people from HBO were doing something to offset the porn. So they were doing something with CTW, which is Children's Television Workshop, which is Sesame Street. And they were doing something for kids on HBO. So they came to see Jonathan Richmond. And then they saw us open for it. And we did the song called Go Ahead and Split Mr. Amoeba Man, which is on our first album. And they loved it. And so they called us and they said, well, we want you to audition for this show called Encyclopedia. So we came up from DC on the train. We auditioned. We got it. And so we wrote 25 songs that had to do, it was all the alphabet. And it's a song, they would give us a song, a word, and we'd have to define it in a song, which was really fun and really great. We stayed at the Mayflower Hotel, which is old school rock and roll in New York. People like Sinead O'Connor at the time stayed there, and everybody hung in the bar, and it was crazy. It was really fun. And so we recorded and mixed 25 songs in 3 weeks, and then we did it on camera. And it's on our YouTube channel, Betty Verse, VERSE, and they are hilarious, hilarious. And so that was on HBO. So that brought us to New York, and then we moved here the next year.
Where were you living? Like, where was your first apartment? Did you live together?
Yeah.
Where was that first apartment?
2nd Avenue and 4th Street. It was a duplex.
Ooh.
Yeah. And there were 2 bedrooms and the veal room, which is what we called it. Like, you know how veal is in a box.
Yeah.
That was my room, of course. I always got the veal room, but you know, it was crazy. We had great parties. We played loud music. I mean, we were known as the party house.
How much was your rent?
God, I don't remember, but it seemed like a lot at the time, but it wasn't. It was a lot at the time. It was like $2,600 or something.
And what year was this?
When we moved here in 89.
Okay.
So that was a lot of money then.
Yeah.
But, you know, we had made a lot of money on the TV show, and we just came here and we were touring. We were always touring. So, you know, we sort of imploded. Then Tony moved in with Allison downstairs, and then we moved out. But we lived together. I guess we lived together like 3 years. It was nuts, though. You know, sex and drugs and rock and roll for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you want to hear how I first discovered you?
I hope you were naked.
No.
Okay.
No. I first discovered you because I was a huge fan of Michael Greif.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm a huge Rent head. And I would follow I've seen all the offshoots that Anthony Rapp and the guy who played Roger, like all the offshoots that those guys have done. And I've seen probably everything Michael Greif has ever directed.
He's a good friend.
Because he directed Rent originally. And this was maybe like 2003. It was maybe it started in 2002. Michael Greif was directing this off-Broadway show at, I think it was the Zipper Theater?
Yeah.
That basically told the story of a rock and roll band. And I was always into, and cut to, this is you. It's your story. It's
called Betty Rules.
Called Betty Rules.
Yeah.
And I was always into the stories of rock bands. Like one of my favorite movies is Pray for Rock and Roll with Gina Gershon.
Oh, yeah.
You've seen that? Like I love those. I love the story of like the rocker and like when like really the story that movie tells, which is like this aging rocker, she's turning 40, like cut to me, I'm 40, but like, you know, and figuring out like at what point. And I dated a musician for a short while, and like she would often talk to me about like at what point is this like pathetic. Meanwhile, she's still doing it.
It's never pathetic.
No, but in terms of like at what point if you don't make it,
but what's making it
enough to make a living?
Yeah. But that's very hard for anyone in America. A lot of my friends that are Canadian or they're Australian or German, they get subsidized by the government to make music. In Canada, when you want to make a record, the government helps you pay for it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. In Germany, you when you're a musician, they'll subsidize your housing and your living. So you can
sounds like we shouldn't be living in New York.
Well, I mean,
or America.
It's very hard for musicians, for artists in general in America. It is very hard. I mean, there are great grants and there's things to get, but the people that make a living writing those grants.
Yeah.
New York is better than most places, honestly, but it's so expensive to live here that you have to live with like 3 or 4 people if you're younger to try and break into the business. But there's a million places to play. I mean, we've been very lucky.
We're gonna put a pin in Betty Rules because I want to.
That's how. Did you see the show?
Yeah, yes, that's how I discovered you.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that is how I discovered you. Was I saw Betty Rules because Michael Greif directed it, so of course I'm gonna go see his new show.
It was good. It was really fun,
and it tells the story how you meet, your first gig, and like you reenact all of these moments being an unsigned band. And it's very funny. Like the music is great, and like that, and it was very successful. Like it ran for
couple of years.
I think at the Zipper Theater you did like nearly 200 plus shows.
Yeah, and then we went to DC and Chicago. Yeah,
and
it was a lot.
Is that where the story I heard is where Ilene Chaiken discovered you? She had
in Chicago.
She went to see.
Actually, she knew my uncle. My uncle, he started Rolling Stone magazine as the design director, so she knew my uncle through something. And then we met, and then she came to Chicago to see.
Oh, wait. I wonder if she knew. I know that she went to RISD. Maybe that's how she knew your uncle.
No, he didn't go to RISD.
Oh.
I don't know how she knew him, but from L.A., because my uncle's from L.A., Lord Ziff. I don't remember that story, but I do remember that she came to see us in Chicago. And in the second season of the L Word, they wanted a theme song. So they asked 4 different bands to submit a theme song. And so we submitted a theme song.
How many bands were you competing against?
There were 4
bands. Different bands.
Yeah.
And she saw you. She said, I want to hear from Betty because she was taken to see Betty Rules.
Right.
Do you know the other bands who you were up against?
I don't remember. You know, it was a long time ago. Honestly.
Not that long ago.
15, 16 years ago. That's a long time ago.
You know what's interesting? I literally this week or last week, something like I saw it online. In the past 2 weeks was the 20th anniversary of the pilot airing of the L Word.
Yeah, so it's almost 20 years.
So the point is we don't remember the other bands.
I don't. If I did, I would say it, but no, I don't remember.
They basically held like a competition who's, it
wasn't really a competition. I mean, I don't think we knew about each other, but I knew that there were 4 bands. And so, we submitted it and Showtime loved it. So that's what happened.
Were there any other songs that you wrote intended to possibly be theme song choices?
Well, we have theme songs on other shows, but no, not really. We wrote that specifically for the L Word.
Now, this song gets a lot of shit.
I know. I love it.
And something that I truly respect about you and the rest of the Betty is you guys are committed to the bit. You will show up to, my friend Carolyn Berger wrote the L Word Christmas Carol. And like last year when she's done it for the past few years. I know he's like a year in advance. We're like kicking around ideas of like what would make it more fun. And one of the ideas was how hilarious would it be if like Betty performed the theme song. And you guys fucking show up and you will sing that theme song And 20 years later, people are thrilled. Could not be more thrilled.
It's fun. It's fun. It's a fun thing to do because it's so iconic and it's such a memory for so many people, but it's so deeply queer, and so it's in your face and it's of a time, and it's still, all these years later, it still holds. It still holds as a song.
Do you play it at all your shows?
We played a lot of our shows because people want us to. Mm-hmm. And I think it's gross when you go see a band and this one of the songs or a couple of the songs that they're really known for, they don't play. It's just sort of a fuck you to the audience.
Right.
So we do. There was a time where we didn't. And then people got mad and we were like, okay, we'll start playing it again. But it's really fun to sing. It's fun to sing. It's fun to play.
Like, how did you write that song? Because it's kind of a crazy ass song.
At the time, I was really into drum and bass. And so I was working hard with our drummer. We were doing a lot of drum and bass stuff, the bed of the song. And that's really where the nut of it came from. And then we would just watch the show and we just thought, okay, well, what's happening here?
Had you been watching the first season of the show when it aired?
Yeah, I did watch the first season.
Did you like it?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was hilarious and great and important and, groundbreaking. It really was. It wasn't realistic, really. A lot of it wasn't realistic, but why do we want realistic TV unless it's a, reality show? But some of it rang true.
I thought the first season was pretty realistic. If anything was going to be if we're going to say anything is realistic on the L-Word of any season, I think the first season is the most emotionally true.
You're probably an expert in it. I haven't watched it since it ended. So
it's not as zany.
Yeah, it got zany. Every show gets zany.
Yeah.
I got sick though during it. And so the last season that I was working on it, I was pretty out of it. I was pretty sick. So, but I still went back and forth to Vancouver from New York, even though I was getting treatment and stuff. So that's another reason that things are pretty fuzzy.
Okay.
Yeah, because
you're a cancer survivor?
Yeah, I had breast cancer and it got really bad. So I did chemo for about 3 years, which is a long time. And so the last year I was working there, I wasn't sick for 3 years. I was just really sick for the last year.
Okay.
But I was still working, which was sort of probably not the smartest thing to do, but whatever. And so I was going back and forth to Vancouver, and I was the producer at the end of the show. I was the producer that sat with the guys that were mixing it. And, you say, okay, the music needs to be louder here or less. And so I was pretty much the first one to go as a writer in the writer's room. And then we would write in LA, and then we'd move to Vancouver. And then I would stay all the way through, way past everybody else, because I did the mixing of the final shows, which I loved. I love that kind of stuff. I have my own studio. I produce and write music. I'm doing music right now for a documentary. Betty's doing it. And I just did music for a short film, which just got into the International British Film Festival, which is really cool. So I love that. I'm a nerd when it comes to stuff like that. I could sit for hours and just work on, one note.
So you initially, obviously you were selected to do the theme song, but initially your first job there was as the music supervisor.
No, I was a composer.
Oh.
I was never the music supervisor, but I did bring a lot of music. Now, the music supervisor's main role in television is to get a lot of the paperwork and give you ideas and things like that. But I made a concerted effort to have all the music that was used in the show, which was about 22 songs per episode, to either be people who were queer, lesbian, gay-friendly, women, or trans. And I did. So if you listen to all that music is all queer allies. So I'm proud of that. That's the thing I'm most proud of.
How did you begin writing on the show? I mean, there was a strong reaction to Betty coming on, and because it went from, I think actually Kate and Leisha spoke about this a while ago on their podcast. I think they said they felt like all of a sudden the three of you came in and there was a lot of you guys you were on the show, little cameos here and there. Mm-hmm. What was the process for that? How did that all happen?
Well, the process really was, Eileen wanted, I think she wanted a little bit more of the people who were actually in the movement to be a part of the show. Mm-hmm. That was important to her. Politics are important to her. People in the movement. We've always been in the pro-choice movement, gay rights movement, the women's rights movement, and we've been very vocal and a huge part of that movement and the gay men's movement for a long time. We worked for, we sang for AIDS for years. At the very beginning, when people would never go near AIDS or say they were a gay band or whatever because it would destroy your career, that never deterred us. So we performed for AIDS and for gay rights. So I think it was important to her to have people who were really a part of the movement that had gotten to the place where you were able to actually have a show on television about that. I don't know about all the other stuff and the controversy. That was never a part of my whole thing. Was I wanted just to be a part of something that was making something that was entertaining and valid and political and fun. And that's really what I did. And Betty, Amy and Allison and Betty was totally separate. They weren't a part of it.
Had you written for television prior?
I had written television shows, but I hadn't written on a television show. I'd written television shows, but they had, we tried to sell them and they hadn't sold. But I also write poetry. I write books. I'm a writer. Also, when you make a set list, it's sort of like writing a script because there's a beginning, a middle, and end, and there's an arc to it, and there's characters in it, which are the songs. And I helped with some storylines and stuff like that. And Eileen knew she had seen some of my writing, and she asked me if I wanted to write on it. And yeah, why wouldn't I? And then when I started writing on it, it was a really good thing. It was fun. It was a process that I did. We did the writer's room where we broke story and stuff like that. But then the writing you do on yourself, and then the producers or change it or don't. But I found it to be one of the easiest things I've ever written, writing scripts.
Some of your episodes are actually among my favorites. Two that come to mind. There's an episode, I don't remember which season it's in, but it's when Bette and Jody have a huge fight at the end of this dinner party. Mm-hmm. And I felt like the writing really got to the crux of who Bette was. The line is something to the effect of, she says, I want somebody who works with me. And Jody says, no, you want somebody who works for you. Mm-hmm. And I remember watching that for the first time and feeling like that was so powerful and really got to the core of who that character was. It was something that hadn't been said before. Mm-hmm. Do you remember, did you write that line? I know you wrote that.
Yeah, all the ones that have my name on it, I wrote, and some that don't.
And some that don't, yeah.
Because I was a producer, and that's your job. And a lot of the writers, most of the writers were great on the show. But this was a world that I knew. And also because I didn't come from that place where you go to college for screenwriting or whatever, and then you get out, and then you get a job as an assistant, and then, you work your way up. I've had a life. I had a big life where I traveled the world. And I had a lot of experiences, and I could pull easily from them, and especially experiences in this world in particular. And so I was lucky in that way that it was easier for me to write. And I'd had experiences with a lot of relationships, not great, some great, friends, really close friends that we all cared about each other. And that was my biggest thing in the writing room is I wanted people, if they're friends, they care about each other, and they know each other. And so you can hurt each other if you know somebody that well, because you do say things like you want somebody to work for you, even if you don't want to say that. We say shitty things to our friends and shitty things to our lovers, and it's real. And I think that the L Word did capture a lot of that, hopefully. And also a lot of the elation and the joy of being gay and having this group of friends. And that's my life. My life's work is friendship. That's what's going to be on my tombstone. She was a good friend. Maybe not the best girlfriend, but a good friend, right. So that was important to me, writing on that show. And I really loved writing. I still write a lot of scripts. I'm always trying to sell scripts. And not to sound like a dick, but it comes easily to me.
Were there any story points or storylines that came directly from you?
I think Marlee Matlin's character did come from a suggestion from me, but everybody, I'm not really sure, and maybe the military woman.
Love that you created Tasha, Rose Rollins, who came back in Gen Q, by the way. But that's so interesting. Like, where did you get the idea for Bette to date a deaf woman, played by Marlee Matlin, of course?
Because I sang at so many women's music festivals and so many festivals in general. I grew up in DC, and we started playing, and we played with Sweet Honey and the Rock there. And Sweet Honey and the Rock was a group, and we played with them a couple times at festivals. And they had, as a permanent part of their group in the early 80s, they had a signer, and she was a part of the band. And so that we were very aware of that. Gallaudet College was in DC, which is a college for deaf. And it was such a huge part of the queer community, the gay community. At a very early time, we were privy to that because people would have signers way before the straight world did, way before. And so I think that has always been an important part of the gay community, people who are deaf or who have hearing impaired or whatever it is. And so I wanted to bring that in because I think it was important. And I didn't know about that until I was really in the gay community, in the queer community. And at all these festivals in the early 80s, they had signers.
Were there characters that you found easier to write for than others?
I found it very easy to write for Bette. Pretty easy to write for Shane. Alice, too. I mean, they were easier to write for because I knew those people. And part of them were me, too. And also, Jennifer Beals is a really good actor. So whatever you gave her, she actually did the lines, you know?
As opposed to what?
A lot of people didn't. Not
like
a lot.
Like they would just, but oh yeah, they would improv a lot.
But improv is cool. It's cool. It's great. But I think Jennifer...
That's so funny. She was great because she read the lines.
No. She's also a really good actor.
Yeah.
She is. She's just, she was a really good actor. I loved working with Pam Grier. I liked writing for her. She reminded me a lot of an Allison character, my best friend, because she was straight, but she was in the community and she was really an ally. And she had some great lines. She was talking about butch people, where are all the butch people, instead of transitioning, which was very controversial, but also was real for her, I thought. Because it was this whole new world that was coming up, and for a lot of people. And there were things that we needed to talk about. And I think we did talk about it. I mean, yeah, we jumped the shark a lot, but who the fuck doesn't? And, it did get crazy, but it was also so fun to watch. It was just fun. Right. And the sex was great. The sex was filmed really well. It was acted really well. It was definitely written by people who had had sex with girls. And I think people responded to that. It was sexy and fun. And the music was great.
I thought that the music selections were among the best across television. Like across shows that are really well, like Grey's Anatomy, especially in the day, was noted for discovering new artists. And I always loved, especially as the show went on, the latter seasons, 4 or 5, I felt like the music, were you using Shirley Bassey? They were using older music. It gave the show another layer of personality.
I wanted the music to be a character, and so did Eileen. That's what she asked for. And season 4 and 5 especially, I really got in there. And I brought a lot of music from the community, but also music that I just loved. I saw Shirley Bassey at Carnegie Hall with my ex-girlfriend, who was my girlfriend at the time. We sobbed 3 times. I mean, she was incredible. If you've never seen her live, I mean, she's really old now, but she's from that world that can sing their ass off, like Tom Jones. She's Welsh. Well,
you pulled in Dusty Springfield. I felt like the music was so great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is to make, mixed, whatever it is, mixtape CD.
It was a lot more fun when they were mixtapes.
Yeah. But to make them for somebody and introduce them to music. And one of my favorite times is sitting around with somebody and having them introduce me to new stuff or me introduce them. And I did this on a huge level. And it was so fun. It was so fun because it would help people who needed some help getting out there. I think it also just brought this whole other meaning to the show. You know, music is so important in the LGBT community. It really is. It's a lifeline for a lot of people. Before the internet, before all that, it was a lifeline that you would pass around to each other and say, listen to this song. I think it has a double meaning or whatever. Or we think this person is queer. Or
Well, that's like story of my fucking life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you know, you have a breakup song and you listen to this song and you sob and you get over it.
Were there any storylines that you fought for on the show that just never happened? Like something that you want, maybe not a storyline, but literally just like a scene that you thought of that you thought would be great for whatever reason, and it just didn't happen.
Well, scenes I could always put them in a script if it made sense. But the only one that didn't happen, and probably for good reason.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because I really wanted to write about STDs. Because so many people get STDs. But everybody in the writing room were just like, are you kidding me? No way. So every time I brought it up, they're like, no. I said, can't you get VD or can't you get gonorrhea? But anyway, that was a big, and no, that was, and in retrospect, it was probably good that
I think it was a good call.
Yeah.
I think it was a good call. Okay, can I ask you the hard questions now?
I might not answer them.
Okay.
But yes, ask away.
Dating Ilene Chaiken.
Yeah, it was wonderful.
At what point did you start dating?
I think a year in.
How serious was the relationship?
I mean, it was very creative. She's very smart. She's a rad feminist. We laughed our ass off.
But were you living together?
No.
Okay.
No. I lived in New York. She lived in LA. And we worked together in Vancouver and in the writer's room. We tried to not have it happen, but it happened. Anyway, we're still good friends. I love Ilene. She's great.
I heard you're still in touch with Ilene.
Yeah,
that's great.
Why wouldn't I be? I'm in touch with all my exes. And more than being together, dating, we really had a creative bond. She really saw something in me that very few people have ever seen. She saw the writer in me, and I'm grateful, forever, eternally grateful for her for that, because it was a whole nother aspect of my creativity that I probably never would have been able to delve into as deeply as I did. But she pushed me, and she allowed me to become a better writer and a good writer, and we pushed each other.
Like, how did the relationship, or just the fact that you were together, how did that impact the crew, the cast, the general set, the writer's room?
We never let it get in that. Like, she never showed me preference or anything like that. She protected me sometimes from some people, but the crew could have given a shit.
Protected how?
She believed in me, in my writing. And then, when Jennifer Beals came up to me and said, "You're a really great writer, and I'm glad that you're writing." That was a big change.
I love that.
Yeah, it was cool. It was, I was actually on set, and I was very, very rarely on set, because, I was doing the music and stuff like that. And I just didn't think it was my place to be on set, honestly. Sometimes the writer will go on set for the thing they've written. And there was a basketball one that I wrote.
Oh, yes, you wrote that episode as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another beloved episode.
Oh, that's nice.
That's you've written a lot of the fan favorite episodes.
Oh, really?
You wrote that one, the basketball one. You wrote the one where Bette and Tina where they first get back together, that kicks off that whole season. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that's
nice.
Why
I always have thought that you were I too like Jennifer Beals. We have this in common. Me and Jennifer Beals, we both like your writing on the album.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah. That's nice to know. I don't remember what the question was.
It
didn't really affect it.
It didn't affect it.
I mean, some people got up, it wasn't comfortable for some people. And I think it manifested in not such nice ways, but it's okay.
People
it was
you
okay.
knew or people online?
Oh, people online were brutal. They were brutal. I didn't go online very often because I come from a place of community. I've always come from, a place where people help each other, lift each other up, especially women. And so in that sense, Ilene became more of a community for me. And that's what I mean is she protected me. She protected me in the way that we were a community together. And I had friends as well, especially on the crew. And people that I'm still friends. I'm still friends with Jennifer Beals. I'm still friends with Marley. I'm still friends with Rachel. You know,
Rachel Shelley.
Yeah, every time I go to London, we see each other. We're just good friends. And I'm still friends with Laurel, you know, and Pam in particular, we write. And so it was, it was a different experience for someone that comes from community because it's television. And when a lot of money is involved, people get weird and proprietary and exclusionary.
Will you withstand a couple more L word questions?
Yes.
Okay.
You have to remember, for me, the L word is so long time ago. Like, I've done so many records and things like that since then. But I get it. I love the L word. It's a great part of my life. I'm so proud to have been a part of that whole thing. I really am proud of it.
Okay, couple final L word questions. You talked about how you were diagnosed with cancer and you went through all of that, which was during your L word run. When you were going through treatment, at any point did you reflect back on the cancer storyline with Dana on the show? And did it make you feel a certain way toward that storyline on the show, which I presume you by that point you were writing on the show and had input on?
I was, but I didn't have input on that storyline because that was decided already that she was going to get sick and die. So that wasn't, I wasn't involved in that. But it didn't change how I felt about it. I was able to write about Alice and Dana in a really good way. I remember that scene that I wrote when, I think Alice was yelling at Dana or something about it. I don't remember exactly what it was, but that I brought some reality into it, but mainly because my mom died of cancer. And so I was very familiar with that already. And she died very early. I was 28. So I knew that story, but I also knew that that story is not an easy story to tell. And it's also, there's a lot of depth to cancer. It's not a one trick pony, and there's many different stories about it. And so we told one story about cancer. It can't cover everything. I thought we did it in a good way. I know a lot of people were mad that she was killed, and I like that actor. She was upset that she was killed off for sure, but she got married. She's fine. And to answer your question in a very long roundabout way, it didn't harken back to me at all. And it was the last year. And after that, I had 2 very difficult years after the show ended. So I was really the 3 years. But listen, I'm one of the lucky ones. I got through it. I had good insurance,
right?
Which is key. And I had a great community, which really took care of me.
One other L word question, writing for Jenny, was that, I actually interviewed Ilene and I brought up the point that she had said that Jenny became complicated because Mia was complicated. And so that infiltrated the writing and how that character evolved. Can you talk to me just like how you guys wrote this character?
Well, Mia did bring it to a different level, for sure. Mia was the most political person on the crew, on the cast rather. And I really admire that about her. She did some really good work on her own and things like that. She wrote a book about it and it was very cool stuff. And as an actor, she's really cool, but she definitely did some diversions from the scripts. And so we had to sort of be on our toes about it because she would just go in a different way.
Did you enjoy that or did you find it challenging?
It's challenging. It's challenging because we have an idea in the writer's room. We have an idea of the arc of the character, the arc of the story for the whole season that the actors don't necessarily know unless we've talked about it. And there's reasons that we write certain things so they can move along into that arc of the character and the season and the story itself. And so if you go off script like that so a lot, it's challenging because we have to sort of dance around it. I mean, in some ways it can be really great, but in some ways it can be challenging for the people that you're working with too, not just the writers, but the actors. because you're going off script.
How to respond in a scene.
Yeah, how do you respond? And a lot of people don't know how to improv. A lot of actors don't. They don't come from the improv world, and it's a hard thing to do. But she's really beautiful. She's interesting. But it was difficult to write for her, to write for that character, because you never knew what she was going to say. So that's hard.
Okay. Yeah. Now, I know you didn't watch any of the reboot, correct?
I didn't, only because I don't have a TV, and also...
You didn't miss much. It's okay.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I think some people liked it, right?
Yeah, it was fine. High highs and low lows.
Okay.
But there is a rumor. Not a rumor. It was announced to some degree that there will be who knows, with the writer's strike or whatever, that there is this thing called the L Word New York.
Mm-hmm.
Is this real or not?
I mean, I'm not the L Word expert, but I haven't heard anything about that. A lot of people have asked me, but I don't know. I'm not in the know. It was under Eileen's name.
Mm-hmm. This was pre-strike. Mm-hmm. So we'll see if that becomes anything. But
I think Showtime was bought recently by Hulu, by
Paramount,
Paramount.
Yeah.
And they're only showing the original L Word.
I know.
So I'm not sure how that's going to go.
However, tell me what you think of this.
Okay.
I'm going to pitch you an idea here.
Okay.
First of all, it's interesting that they can't write another gay show. It all has to be under the umbrella of the L Word is kind of crazy. And anything else that tries, I thought did you watch A League of Their Own?
Yeah, I thought it was great.
It was amazing. Phenomenal. Canceled.
No, really?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Huh. That's strange because it was really good.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
But no,
I guess it was too gay for them.
I don't know. So there's this thing of the L Word New York. Here's my idea.
I hope it happens.
I hope it happens. I hope it happens too. It'll give me more content. Now, here's my thought. I think that it needs to take place in the 90s.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in the L Word Gen Q failed in the way, and just like that fails Sex and the City, in the way they're trying to right the wrongs, quote unquote, of the original in a way that is heavy-handed and annoying as fuck.
I haven't seen it, so I don't know.
Just
okay.
overly politically correct.
Okay.
Making sure every box is checked. So I think a way to get away from that is to have it be set in the 90s, have the whole thing be a period piece in a way.
Well, the thing about that is I think they should do a show, not the L Word, but I think there is a documentary that is being made that a really good friend of mine, Wanda Acosta, who's amazing and really is the person behind Lipstick Lesbian, the world. She started Café Tabac. In the 90s.
What do you mean behind Lipstick Lesbian? What does that mean?
She started that.
Started what?
She started a club called Café Tabac. Do you know of it?
No.
You should.
Okay.
Café Tabac was the coolest, the hippest, the most glamorous Sunday night at a place called Café Tabac
in New York?
Yes, that only lesbians went to. And it was the place to be seen and to go, and it was underground, and everybody went. Latifah went, everybody went. Madonna, but also just you dressed for it. It was sexy. It was incredible.
Oh, like lesbian chic.
And that's what the show should be. It should be about Café Tabac, and it should be called Café Tabac, and Wanda should write it. And it was very mixed. Wanda's Puerto Rican, so it was very mixed. It was black, it was Hispanic, it was white. There were no cell phones. Nobody was taking pictures. It was people get drunk. They smoked pot. They made out. They showed up every Sunday, and it was the ultimate. Katie Lang came when she was in town. It was the beginning of all of that.
Where was it?
East Village, on 9th Street. So that's what the show should be. It shouldn't be the L Word. It should be called Café Tabac, because that's
cool.
what I would write.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, I know my friend Carolyn was chatting with you, and you were sort of lamenting to her that you can't believe everybody is married now.
Mm-hmm. I've worked for LGBTQ rights my whole life, right?
Uh-huh.
And I always thought, because I guess I'm considered sort of a radical person. I have radical ideas, radical politics, socialist mostly. And, I think everybody should be able to eat, have a place to live, and have health care. Call me crazy. So I worked for gay marriage. I worked for gay rights. I worked for abortion rights. I really worked, we marched in the streets. We sang at every protest. We did all this stuff. But I thought that people wanted to change the paradigm. I thought people wanted to become different. I thought people wanted to pretty much like get rid of marriage as we knew it and start this whole new way of living. But imagine my chagrin when I realized that everybody in this community just wanted to be have marriage, have kids, live like heteronormative lives. Mm-hmm. I've never wanted that. I've always been a freak, and I always thought everybody else wanted that too. I thought we would change marriage so you wouldn't have to get married to adopt somebody. You wouldn't have to get married to have your spouse be able to come and see you in the hospital. It's not saying that I don't think people should be able to get married because they're gay, because they should. Everybody should be able to get married. But why the fuck do you want to get married? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, we love each other. Let's get a piece of paper and say we're married. So I was out of step with the entire community.
I think it's hilarious how all these lesbians get married and have the kids, and then 3 years later they get divorced, and then they're in custody battles over the goddamn kids. That's my favorite.
Well, I don't want anybody to suffer like that because the kids suffer in those custody battles, But, I mean, think about it. We had all this time because we couldn't get married. If I could have gotten married, honestly, I probably would have a couple of different times. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to, I'm single, right? So it's hard to date or find people because I don't want to go on apps because it grosses me out. It's just hard to date because most people are married or they have kids.
They're married and they're in open relationships.
I'm okay with that for sex. But I mean, if you want to have a relationship, it's interesting. But it's not my primary goal,
Yeah.
I think if it were my primary goal, I would try a little harder.
I mean, you kind of answered. I was going to ask, what do you think the biggest misconception is about you? And I think you really spoke to that in a lot of our conversation.
Did I?
I think so. Well, I guess I'll let you answer. What do you think?
I think the biggest misconception about me, and people have told me this their whole life, is that I seem really tough and raw and bitchy when they first meet me, but then they realize that I'm not. And I think I've very much mellowed on my outer appearance as I get older, but I think that's the biggest thing is I don't present necessarily as who I am.
What do you mean?
I have a much tougher exterior that I'll present when I meet somebody or when I'm thrust into a situation.
You were a delight walking in here. What do you mean?
I'm not that way anymore. But
okay.
I was, especially in my youth, because I was fighting. I was fighting my whole life. I grew up Jewish in a place that was not Jewish at all. So I literally fought. I mean, I grew up in France and then I grew up in Virginia. And I'm not religious. We never went to synagogue or anything like that, but we were Jewish and it was important to my parents. So, we went to elementary school and we'd have to teach the entire school about Hanukkah. And we'd have to get up in front of everybody with a fucking menorah and tell everybody in Virginia, in the 70s. And so, we had a cross burn on our lawn in Fairfax, Virginia. We had a Nazi swastika painted on our moving van. And it didn't stop us from having friends. My sister, we ended up being popular kids. Me, not so much. But I grew up in an environment where I was always the other. And so I had to either be the funny one, which I don't think I'm very funny on this, but I'm normally pretty funny. And or I'd just have to fight it out. And I did. I broke my skateboard over a guy's head because he called my brother a kike. I got in a huge fight with the guy in my high school because he said that the Nazis should have killed my sister when she was elected president or so. I mean, he was insane. And I beat the shit out of him. And this guy was big. And they tried to, they called my parents and they were going to suspend me. And my parents said, good for her. So I really did. I mean, I grew up under some duress. There were some problems in my family that made it difficult, and like all of us, I coming out as a gay person in that time when I didn't know anybody else in the world was gay. Honestly, I had no role models, and I literally thought I was going to die. I really didn't want to live because there was no internet. There was nobody telling me that it was okay to feel this way. And I felt shame, and I'd heard my parents talk about being gay in really bad ways. Mm-hmm. So that I developed a very tough exterior and became very, very sexual. You know, I fucked a lot of people, a lot of men, a lot of women, trying to find myself. And so I got really tough because when you sleep with a lot of people that you don't necessarily want to be sleeping with, but you're doing it because you're just doing it, especially when you're gay and you don't want to be gay. So I think that persona developed pretty young. And then I started playing rock and roll music, and I was in bands. And so I had this tough exterior persona on stage, as well as had developed from being the other. And so much of the other, not really necessarily wanting to be the other, but having to be the other. And now I'm really glad that I grew up like that, because I identify as a Jewish person much more strongly because I didn't grow up in a Jewish environment. I don't know what that's like. I think that's the misconception about me, is that I'm a tough hard ass. And it's my fault because I've presented like that for so long. And I'm really not. You know, I'm not. Yeah. I need love. Love me.
I love you. Tell me what's going to happen on February 14th at Joe's Pub.
Well, it's our 38th anniversary. It's also Valentine's Day, so it's great. We're almost sold out, so it'll be fun.
Amazing.
You should come.
You know what's funny? For the past few years, Leah Delaria has always done, like, she does a show at Joe's Pub where she sings, like, anti-love songs, she sings like breakup songs, and I guess she's not doing it this year, but
Leah's an old friend.
Yeah, she's great.
She's an old friend. We know her from way back.
So you're gonna be playing the hits. Like, are you gonna be? What else is happening at the show?
We're gonna show some old video of us, some pictures. We'll tell the story. Allison's daughter, Ruby, is doing a video of our new single from our new album. That's not going to be out for a while, but the new single will be. And it's called Flow, and I think you have it.
Yeah. Yes, I listened to it. It's great.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. And we'll show her video. Get happy and warm, yeah, yeah. Make it through and we're dancing up a storm. And we're going to do songs from starting one of our first songs that we ever opened with all the way into Flow, which is our new song. So we're going to span 38 years, which is going to be really fun.
Now, when I go to a Bette concert, what is the demographic of the crowd?
It depends on where you are. In Europe, it's much, much younger.
Let's say New York for argument's sake.
It's interesting because it's old and young.
Mostly women. What is the...
it depends on where we're playing, but... I think there's a lot of women. We have a pretty wide audience. So,
did you guys ever play Lilith Fair?
We might have.
You know, the Sarah McLachlan festival?
I remember Lilith Fair, but I don't remember. I mean, we've played thousands of gigs at this point. And
I think they should bring back Lilith Fair.
For sure. That's a great idea.
They've done like 3 iterations of it, but not for like 15, 20 years.
It's hard to do shows, especially those kind of shows. But yeah. Why don't you start it?
Yeah. I have a lot on my plate. This has been so fun. Thank you so much.
Very serious. A lot of L-word stuff. You brought up a lot of L-word crap, man.
Anything you want to say anything you want to get out there that I didn't ask you, that like you're just dying for the world?
Yeah, follow us on Instagram at Betty Rules, RULES, BETTYRULES, or go to our YouTube channel, which is Betty Verse, VERSE, or just go to our website, hellobetty.com.
And your podcast, which really chronicles the rise of Bette from DC to New York and is so good, filled with music and interesting people. That is Bette Girl Band, the podcast, which highly recommend. Elizabeth Ziff, I think we covered it all.
No, we didn't even scratch the surface. We covered a lot of L-word shit.
All right, we'll start there. We'll move on next.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Hardy fiber cement siding is proven to withstand water, pests, and fire better than wood-based siding. And it looks better while doing it. Hardy siding has been chosen for 10 million homes and counting. See the proof at jameshardy.com.